Learning and development is always looking for ways to help people recognize and develop their strengths and weaknesses, improve their leadership and communication skills, and unlock their full potential. We do this because we want more motivated, skilled, and productive workforce. But is there a simple way to achieve all of this? Well, yes, there is. And don't worry, it's definitely not a magic trick, but we think it's something even more wonderful. It's called coaching. Hello, and welcome to the L&D Academy's channel, where we talk about all things learning and development. My name is Irina, and in today's video, we're tackling the topic of coaching for L&D. But first up, what exactly is coaching? Because of its popularity, coaching can mean different things to different people. And speaking of, how would you describe what coaching is? Pause the video here and let me know what's your take in the comments down below. Are you ready? Great, thank you so much. So let's try and establish what we mean by coaching as a learning intervention. I really like the story about the origin of the word. Back in the day, people used to travel in horse carriages. The person responsible for the carriage to move or stop when needed was called a coach. So technically, it's the horses that made the carriage move, but without the coach's guidance, they wouldn't know which way to go, when to move faster, and when to slow down. One of the founding fathers of modern-day coaching, in the business world specifically, is Sir John Whitmore. He defines it as a process that unlocks a person's potential to maximize their own performance. Let's try and make sense of this definition. As someone responsible for other people's learning and development, you can adopt either a directive or a supportive behavior. For example, as a trainer, you adopt a very directive approach. You tell trainees what they need to know, you show them how to do it, and you give them opportunities to practice and receive feedback on their performance. However, as a coach, you'd adopt a supportive behavior. That is, you'd encourage and help your learners explore their challenges and ways to resolve them on their own. Through questions, we help them deal with issues that are relevant to them and therefore encourage self-learning. In practice, if someone came to you with a problem, as a trainer, you would tell them how to fix it. However, as a coach, you would ask them a series of questions to help them explore all perspectives and come up with a solution on their own. Coaching versus other learning methods. A great way to grasp the concept of coaching is by comparing it to some of the other developmental approaches, like training, mentoring, and counseling. Let's compare coaching to training first. Training primarily focuses on imparting specific skills, whereas coaching emphasizes enhancing an individual's thinking process. Training is commonly implemented in a group setting, whereas coaching is frequently a personalized one-on-one conversation. Coaching employs a questioning approach and is tailored to suit an individual's unique style, encouraging them to devise their own solutions to challenges. Training, on the other hand, is more instructional. The trainer's role demands experience in the specific domain, having an in-depth understanding of the subject matter, and providing guidance or resources for further exploration. On the other hand, a coach acts as a catalyst, and although experience in specific domain can be advantageous, it's not always necessary. Let's take a look at the difference between coaching and mentoring. These two terms are often mixed due to their similarities, with some even using the term synonymously or interchangeably. However, there is a great deal of difference. For one, mentors, who are typically seasoned professionals, provide advice rooted in their field of experience. A coach, however, employs questioning and feedback to stimulate an individual's thought process. Mentors tend to concentrate on broad objectives, lifelong aspirations, and extensive goals, whereas a coach can offer guidance for both short and long-term objectives. Finally, there are some similarities between coaching and counseling, but there are different development methods altogether. Counseling delves into a deeper personal exploration of an individual, often scrutinizing aspects like their childhood experiences, whereas coaching generally revolves around a person's professional or personal aspirations. The objective of counseling is to unearth the root cause of a behavioral issue for further examination and potentially rectification. This process demands a highly knowledgeable professional or expert in the domain. On the other hand, coaching is accessible to anyone regardless of domain knowledge, demonstrated by instances where you might coach a manager about leading people despite not being a manager yourself. The potential for self-coaching further emphasizes that domain expertise is not a prerequisite for coaching. On the other hand, counseling mandates professional knowledge and skills. How to coach. One of the most popular coaching models and the easiest to use is called GROW. It's an acronym that describes the 4 stages of a coaching conversation: goal, reality, options, and way forward. Let's take a closer look. First, you explore the goal of the person. What is it that they want to achieve? What is their desired outcome? The more specific the goal is, the easier it is to then measure it. As a coach, your task at this stage is not just to find out what the goal is, but also make it smart. And just in case you've forgotten what that is, a SMART goal is one that's specific, measurable, achievable, realistic or relevant, and time-bound. For example, I want to become a better public speaker is not a SMART goal. On the other hand, I want to speak at 3 public events by the end of the year is rather specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Once you know what the person wants, you can move on to the reality stage. Here, you help the person explore what is happening right now in the current state of things. Who is involved, when and where is it happening, and how often? What kind of resources and skills do they currently possess? What steps have they already taken towards their goal? By exploring the reality, you can establish a baseline off of which to then proceed with the next stage, that of options. In the options stage, you discuss all the possible actions they could take that would bring them closer to their goal. I like to think of this stage as brainstorming. The idea is to come up with as many options as possible, even if some of them are unrealistic. That's none of our concern at this point. 2 great questions to ask here are: what are some of the ways to reach your goal, and what else? The second question assumes there are more things the person hasn't thought of yet and encourages them to explore in more depth. In contrast, if you say, what about this option? In a way, you're limiting their thinking to, well, only this one option. But once you've brainstormed all the possibilities, it's time for the way forward stage. Here, you select the most appropriate actions and plan ahead. You can ask what the first step is going to be. When are you going to do it? What kind of support or resources would you need to perform this or that task? How will you track your progress? In other words, this is about the practicalities of the chosen course of action. Some coaches call this stage will instead of way forward, and that's because you would also explore the motivation of the person to achieve their goal. A great question to ask here is, why is this important to you? In looking for the answer to this question, you naturally dig for a deeper meaning. I've had cases where my client would suddenly realize that the challenge he was facing was not at all important in the grand scheme of things. And in contrast, I've also had people realize how important their goal is because maybe connected to something much more important to them personally. For example, if the goal defined by the client is to find work-life balance, upon asking the question, why is this important to you? The client may suddenly realize that this will give them maybe more time with their family, or more time to focus on a hobby that they've been neglecting and that brings them a lot of joy. Having said all of this, however, I prefer to stick to way forward instead of will, and here's why. I usually talk about the motivation and willingness to achieve the goal at the beginning of the coaching conversation, usually in the goal stage. It makes sense to establish if the goal is important or not early on, instead of when you have spent some time in the reality and option stages. Want to try out your hand in coaching? Download the free Grow Checklist with some questions for each stage and practice coaching yourself or a colleague. The link is in the description down below. When to coach. Being such a great tool, once we learn how to coach, we may feel tempted to use it left, right, and center. For example, coaching would be a great addition to any management or leadership development program, part of training workshops, or even as a standalone offer. We talk about this in a lot of detail in our article, The Role of Coaching in Learning and Development. Check out the link below or the card on the screen. But there are also times when coaching wouldn't be appropriate. The first is when you're dealing with an urgent crisis. This is when you need to be directive and tell the person exactly what they should do to fix the problem here and now. For example, if the employee has discovered a data breach or the office is on fire, you need to act quickly and swiftly. The second case when coaching is inappropriate is if the person doesn't want to solve the problem. You'll recognize this from their responses. Regardless of the question you ask them, they'll keep telling you, "I don't know." And that is okay. Not everyone wants to be coached. Again, this has largely to do with their motivation. Finally, the third scenario is when the person doesn't have the needed knowledge to make sense of the situation. For example, you wouldn't ask a non-musician to conduct an orchestra, would you? They simply wouldn't know how. And if they want to please you, they will probably come up with some kind of an answer without truly believing in it. So in a way, we can say that you can only coach people who genuinely want to be coached, who have the capabilities needed to do the job, and provided you're not in a crisis. Other coaching models. Grow is just one of the many coaching models out there. If you want to explore more, check out OSKAR and CLEAR. Both of these are acronyms. Very briefly, OSKAR stands for Outcome, Scale, Know-how, Affirm in Action, and Review. You start by helping the coachee define their desired goal and outcomes. Then, using a scale of 1 to 10, you ask them to assess their current position in relation to their goals. Next, you help them identify the skills, knowledge, and resources they would need to bridge the gap between the current situation and the desired outcome. Then, you help them focus on what's working well and what actions they need to take to move closer to their goal, until finally, you review their progress, celebrate their achievements, identify areas for growth, and generally keep them accountable and motivated. CLEAR is a model that provides, well, a clear path to success. Pun totally intended. It's another acronym and it stands for Contract, Listen and Learn, Explore Options, Action Planning, and Review and Reflect. Once again, you start with setting clear objectives and establishing a strong partnership with a coachee. Then you deepen your understanding of their unique needs, their unique challenges, and their aspirations. Next, you help them identify a range of possibilities and potential solutions. Then you co-create a concrete action plan that outlines the specific steps, milestones, and timelines. And finally, once again, you evaluate their progress, celebrate success, and reflect on the lessons learned. The truth is that if you Google coaching models, you'll probably discover another 20 or even 30 different frameworks. Which one you pick will depend on your own preferences. Coaching skills. Coaching is not just about knowing how to structure the conversation or what questions to ask. Coaching actually requires a lot of discipline, the ability to listen actively and listen deeply, to read verbal and nonverbal cues, to show empathy and great emotional intelligence in general. All of these skills require a lot of practice, deeper understanding of the coaching process, and the way thinking shifts when guided on such a journey. ICF. If you really want to get into coaching, there is the International Coaching Federation that governs not just the standards, but also the ethics of coaching. Basically, they're the largest worldwide resource on all things coaching. If you want to learn more, check out their website in the link below. Coaching is an immensely valuable tool in the realm of learning and development. It provides an opportunity for individuals to unlock their full potential, drive their performance, and master new skills. With its focus on encouraging self-learning and individual growth, coaching can effectively complement and enhance traditional training methods. Coaching may not be a magic solution, but it can work wonders when you apply it correctly. It is an art, a science, and a discipline that can truly transform learning and development processes, unlocking a world of potential for both individuals and the organizations. So whether you're a learning and development beginner, a seasoned L&D professional, or just someone passionate about personal growth, why not try your hand at coaching and experience the transformative power it holds? How can you use coaching in your learning and development initiatives? Let us know in the comments down below. And if you've reached the end of the video, first of all, thank you. You're amazing and we love you. Secondly, I have a favor to ask. Head over to the comment section and leave an emoji or two that best describes what you think of this video. We read and respond to all of your comments, so you'll be sure to get an emoji from us as well. With that being said, that's it for today's video. Please like, comment, and share, and be sure to subscribe to the L&D Academy's channel. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you in the next one.